Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Wilderness Attitude Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Waddell. Appreciate you downloading and subscribing to give us a listen. Really appreciate that. Hope everybody's having a great day. Kick back and enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is Brandon with Wilderness Attitude Podcast, and really grateful that you guys are tuning in and listening. Thanks so much. It's raining today. I've been talking to our guest Rick about whether or not bears come out in the rain. I've been trying to get him to talk me into not going out and hunting in the rain, but I think we've collectively decided that it doesn't change anything, so now I'm going to have to go hunt in the rain. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Rick Mowery, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So this is a long time coming. We've tried a few times to get you on the podcast. We've had technical difficulties and scheduling conflicts, but at least now we are here and it is happening.
I live like in a black hole as far as, Wi-Fi and stuff goes. It's hit and miss where I'm at. So, finally we got it worked out. So
yeah, it's cruising so far so good. Well, listeners, Rick Mowery is with the Pope and Young Club. He is the communications manager, has been since 2012. He's got a long list of responsibilities, but I got to meet Rick at the Pope and Young convention this year, and we were out there doing some podcasting and trying some. That was kind of a new effort for Pope and Young and also for myself and with them, and we had a lot of good things come about from that, and we're really happy to have affiliated ourselves with the Pope and Young Club in a manner that suits us both very well. We're really happy to. I'm very happy. I think me and my team, or I should rephrase that, are very happy to be a part of the Pope and Young Club and what they represent, and we're certainly privileged to share their message, and so therefore that's why we have asked Rick to come on the show today. So, Rick, I know we've got a lot of hot topics. We got a lot of cool stuff that we'd like to get to today, and so. But first off, let's give our listeners a little bit of background about yourself and maybe some of your background in not just maybe some personal stuff, but also some industry information.
Well, I graduated high school in 1984. I spent 8 years in the service. When I got out of the service, I got my degree in advertising art and started with the boning company. They were advertising for a part-time graphic designer, and they hired me full-time, and I was with them for 17 years.
Now, is that when you came up with that illustrated feature for Bow and Arrow magazine in '99?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're an artist as well, then?
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Love it. So after you were with boning, then where did you go? What did you do?
To Pope and Young.
Pope. So then you went straight to Pope and Young. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in the service, you were U.S. Air Force, correct?
Yep. Air Force.
And it's my understanding 8 years serving our country, right?
8 years. Yes.
So
8 years.
should we get into the whole NFL gig real quick or not?
Oh, sure. We can get into it. I don't know.
No, just don't. I was joking.
Ridiculous.
I was joking.
I'll say this.
Okay.
The whole point of when you sign up for the military, you are taking an oath to defend the Constitution, not a man, not a set of people. You're taking an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
So it's a unique situation as far as that goes. And so, these guys are out in the field, bleeding, dying, and separated from their families, and having real life struggles, just so that they can have the right to do what they're doing. So I
Right.
wouldn't want to say I want to take that right away from them, right? It's like burning the flag. There shouldn't be a law against it. You just shouldn't do it. To
Right.
respect things,
Right.
I mean, just don't burn it in front of me. I can tell you that much.
Right.
But yeah, I guarantee for me and mine, we stand.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I love it. One of the cool things that I found in some of your background was is that you helped produce concepts for the Tiger Blazer Vane. What was the Tiger Blazer Vane?
well, it's just the design of it. The
Okay.
tiger stripes on it.
Oh, I see. Like you got the zebra ones, the tiger ones, all that kind of stuff.
Right, right, right.
I
I
mean,
mean, I
I've
helped
seen.
bring the Blazer to the market, the actual Blazer Vane to the market, and then we just, added some different twists to it
Yeah,
as far as design goes.
those new Heat Blazers. I sure dig them, man. They're kick ass. The new
That's after my time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Blazer Vane has stood the test of time, right? I mean, it's a
Fantastic product.
concrete foundation to archery, in my opinion. I mean,
It was actually a dealer from, I think, Pennsylvania that came up with that idea.
Really.
Yeah, he sent us a die to take our 5-inch vanes, and cut it here and cut it on this angle, and so he was making like 20,000 a year by hand.
Wow. Wow. Really.
Yeah, and he's just begging us, please make this vane. And when I first saw it, I thought it's a target vane.
Right.
Till I shot it with a fixed blade broadhead, and I'm like, holy mackerel.
That works.
And it worked.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go anywhere without finding a Blazer Vane. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah,
opinion,
they own the market.
they got it locked down, don't they?
Yep.
So you've been involved with some cool products, and that's pretty neat. That's intriguing to me because I just think that sometimes I look at certain stuff and I'm like, who thought of that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who came up with this? But thank God that there's hunters and farmers and creators and there's all these different people in the world, right? Because I am surely not one to look at something and be like, oh, that'd make an arrow fly straight. I'm like, no, I'll be the tester. I'm a tester guy.
I was that as well.
I like being a tester guy. And to anybody out there, if you got any product that you want tested, please let me know because I geek out on all that kind of stuff. I think it's just super cool.
That's the archer's creed, though.
Right?
They like to tinker with stuff and mess with stuff.
We
they don't want it to be just set. They'll have it all set, and 20 minutes before they go hunting, they're messing with their sight or something.
Yeah, I'm the worst. I'm always dicking with shit the week before opening season, and I'm like, I don't know, why am I doing this? I've been shooting lights out for a month.
It's just the way archers are. They just always tweaking stuff.
Yep, always trying to perfect it, right? Little by little, some little gig. So, tell me a little bit more about your television and internet and print stuff that you've been involved in. I think that plays a huge role in the foundation of your position at Pope and Young.
Well, I've written a few articles. I wrote a few. I put together Boning's catalog for years and years and years. I co-hosted Tom Nelson's TV show. I actually took a bear in Manitoba on the American Archer. So I've been involved in just every kind of aspect from the media point of view, via print and, concepting designs and ad campaigns and, concepting 30-second commercials and all kinds of stuff like that. Just any way you could get the word out.
Right. Well, I mean, you got a strong foundation, and obviously that plays a role into Pope and Young, but I'm sure that even having a lot of those accomplishments and a lot of that stuff that you've done, you're coming to Pope and Young and trying to get the message of Pope and Young out has surely been a challenge, has it not?
It's an incredible challenge. Probably the hardest thing that I've ever tried to do. It's because not only is it am I trying to defeat years and years of misperceptions, but I'm trying to do it with little to no budget, and that's not a condemnation of anything about the club. It's that we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so
Right.
we don't want our money going to ad campaigns and things like that. So we try to take advantage of free media, word of mouth, and as much social media as we can as one person can possibly do.
Right. And that's you.
And
You're the
that's
one
me
person.
right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've kind of reached out to a few other people recently to have put them on as admins on our Facebook page so that they can post stuff as the page, and that helps. That helps a lot,
Yeah.
especially ever since I've recently taken over editing the Ethic magazine. So the summer issue was the first one that I did, in the fall issue, which is now pretty much wrapped up, and we're just in the final editing stages now. So those are the first two issues that I've done. So, and that's a full-time job, and so the amount of time I can spend paying attention to the social media and the media side of things has kind of been limited as of late.
So it'll be a little bit of an ebb and flow, right? I mean, as you're, because you got a little downtime on the magazine once it goes in the mail, even though I know it's never ending, but there's probably a little bit of a ramping there where you got a little bit of low where you can work on some other stuff. I would like to think, but I don't know.
Well, it's never ending thing, and probably what I bring to the Pope and Young Club more than anything else is, how on a football team you got to have one or two guys that can play every position.
Right.
That's pretty much what I do. I'm not great at any position, but I can play them all.
You need some mini me's. That's what I think you need. Right.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
What was that damn movie where the guy created more of himself? It was Josh Keaton. Yeah, was it Multiplicity? Yeah. Where he was
Multiplicity.
He had the construction company and all this different stuff.
The last one he made just said 12.
That's right. I'm glad you got a good memory. I don't. I remember parts of it, but I was like, it turned into a damn disaster on him. That's what happened. But it seemed like a great idea in the beginning, didn't it? I mean, if you could have,
you don't think things through all the way.
Right. Well, getting back to the challenge of the Pope and Young Club and trying to share the message at the same time as, I mean, you got to recreate, defend, you're multifaceted and I mean, the attacks come from everywhere, from
outside and from inside.
Yeah, exactly. And, what have you found in your foundation that has kept you positive and motivated, whether it was personal or business related, that's kept you moving forward in these times where it just gets difficult when you're just getting pounded on?
Passion for bow hunting.
Right on.
And the passion to make sure that 4 generations from now, they get to experience the same North American big game and the same wild spaces with a bow as I get to. That's
we have today.
And no matter how much crap and how much negativity that you get thrown at you, that's always the end point. Right. And so you have to have passion for bow hunting, and it's not just archery, okay? Because there's a lot of guys out there that love shooting spots and shooting 3D animals, and that's fantastic, that. But what I'm talking about is those quiet moments, in the woods, in the stands, in the mountains, with just you, a bow, and the wide open spaces.
Right.
Dark forests, mountains.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the genuine roots to it all, right? I mean, that's where Pope and Young started. That's where our forefathers of Pope and Young brought it to light. I mean, we know that Pope and Young definitely supports spot and target and those kinds of things through the S3DA program and different in cross sponsorships there. So there's no doubt that we find archery is important to everybody who shoots, regardless of the fashion that you're doing it. But I think important for people to understand as hunters that Pope and Young is and always will be and should be acknowledged as the foundation to every ability to go out and archery hunt in any state, any county, anywhere in North America. Because
Yeah.
without what they did to lay the foundation, we wouldn't have what we know as an archery season.
Right. And what they did is they laid out not only archery seasons, bow hunting seasons, and helped with this whole sustainable use model. But when you have archers that are, like you say, target shooting and 3D shooting, they have made bow hunting has to be a point of that. That the North American model of wildlife conservation, when we got involved with S3DA, that was part of what we were bringing to the table. Is that you have these kids out there that they weren't raised by a grandpa, a dad, and uncle that were bow hunters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them weren't even raised in hunting families.
Right.
So, in order to give them the tools they need to understand what bow hunting is, they have to be taught the North American model of wildlife conservation, sustainable use, the whole Teddy Roosevelt kind of mindset. Some things that I just kind of took for granted because I was raised in that.
Right.
But what they also give is a roadmap to be able to stand proudly and defend bow hunting against the constant anti barrages that hunters and bow hunters take every single day because of the fair chase and the ethical bow hunting that they subscribe to, because by doing it the right way, that gives you the high ground that you can stand on and say, the reason that we do it this way is so that these animals exist for future generations.
Right.
It's not like buffalo hunting in the 1800s. It's not like that. It's
Right.
It's sustainable use. And bow hunters are different creatures. It's all about up close and personal for them.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the biggest lures for me, being an archery hunter, is connecting on a deeper level with that animal in that close range, environment.
You got to defeat its.
Yeah,
You have to defeat its eyes, its ears, its nose.
That's right. I mean, you're in its house. You're not out at the curb shooting into the living room. You're in his house. You walked past the front door and you are now somewhere in his home, trying to talk him into coming here so that you can get him. And,
right. But that's earning that shot.
Yeah.
Whether or not he presents that shot to you, you earned it. If you get in that close, you've earned it.
That's right. Yeah, and that's
and
for
so
me.
Even if you don't fill a tag, you take that pride away. You take that with you.
Yeah,
it's
even
all
after
about the experience.
Yeah, even our archery season ended on Sunday for elk and deer, and I had a bunch of up close and personal encounters with elk this year, more than I've had in any season. I came to full draw on a monster herd bull and just didn't get it done. It was just, there's a million and one ways to ruin a stock or a call in or whatever, but at the end of Sunday, I went home and I surely was deflated, and I surely felt somewhat defeated, and I surely felt like, well, if I'd have went right instead of left, or if I'd have, I can replay it all as much as I want, but it was in the end, like talking to the few gentlemen that I was hunting with that day and that evening, they were way more deflated than I was in a sense, but walking out of there, I found myself this year asking fellow hunters that I've been with, even at the end of a 4-day hunt or this or that, even still with time left in the archery season, saying, what would you have done differently? What did you learn about that? What did you, and I'm picking their brains as we're hiking 6 miles to the truck, trying to figure it out. And then, at the end of archery season, it really came down to the same things that, I held my ethics, I held my values, I held my head up high when I walked out. I made some amazing memories. I got in some compassionate, encounters with elk and deer, and I made some new friends.
Mhm.
And what else could I have asked for the last 5 weeks of my life? I mean,
That's the cake.
I can spend 5 weeks of my life other times, and I surely can't walk away with all of that.
Right. That's the cake. And, being able to close the deal and harvest the animal, that would just be the icing,
Yeah. Yep.
but it's not the entire cake. And, that's what makes bow hunters a different breed. And that's why it's a cause that is easy to be passionate about.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Pope and Young Club founders gave us the high road to use because they set an example. This is the right way to do it. And if you do it the right way, no matter what kind of negativity and anti comes at you, you got the high road.
Right. That's right. So I mean,
because they
so
will try to use the other stuff against you if you choose to, veer from that path.
right. And so I think, so it befuddles me though that with such a pure presentation and a pure heritage and spoken word and meaning of what Pope and Young has as the the greatest and only national archery organization, that it's so hard to create membership.
I think it's got a lot to do with specifically at this point in time about with the term trophy hunting has gotten really beat up as of late.
Right.
And I don't think people really think about what they're saying when they say that, because you have bow hunters that say, I'm not a trophy hunter. Do you shoot skinny does?
Right.
No, you don't. You shoot big fat does. You're a trophy hunter. Your trophy
Right.
may be different from someone else's, but if you have any kind of a selection process, you're a trophy hunter. If you go to buy a brand new motorcycle or a car, you're looking for a specific thing that fits your needs. You're trophy hunting.
Right. Yeah, you're
Everybody's
comparing everything to everything, right?
Everybody's a trophy hunter, and it's just gotten such a bad rap because, well, you're only interested in this. Well, yeah, but I'm willing to eat tag soup, if I don't see anything that meets the criteria that I set for myself. The wonderful thing is that as a Pope and Young Club, lifetime Pope and Young Club member, I do not have one animal in that book. I would love to, but I don't.
Right.
Because I view, I haven't probably progressed to the point where, Jim Willems or, Harvey Ebers or, those guys have progressed to. But I look at an animal, I'm like, if I'm willing to pay to have that mounted, I'm going to shoot it.
Right.
Now, over the years, that has gotten bigger.
Right.
Do you call that trophy hunting? Because I eat it. I eat the animals. It fills my freezer. It sustains my family.
Mm-hmm.
But, I do have, mounted animals on my wall, which I enjoy immensely because they bring back the memories of those hunts.
I think it's an honorable thing to do in some sense. I mean, it bugs me when someone shoots a small buck and they just kind of discard the antler in a sense where they're just like, it's just in a pile. It's like, I don't care if I shoot, a forky or a big 4x4 or whatever. I feel like, or even a doe, it's like, do a European. It's still cool. I mean, like my daughter's like, well, it ain't a buck, and I'm like, I don't care. Let's clean the skull. Let's put it up there. Every time you look, you know, you do a little desk mount, you know, and maybe someday you'll get to replace that with something different or whatever. But in the meantime, I just feel like that kind of stuff kind of rubs me the wrong way when they just toss it to the side, like, you know, it wasn't good enough to go on the garage
Well,
wall,
yeah,
you know, and it's
and
like,
they look at the club, and they all they can see is the record book, you know.
right,
And so if they're not interested in necessarily hunting for a scored animal big enough to get in the record book, which, you know, is just a set of measurements put together to judge mature animals. That's really
right,
all it is.
yeah,
Um, so if they don't want to fall under that criteria, for some reason they think that they throw everything else that the club stands for out with that, which is kind of short-sighted, because
yeah,
you know, if you take the heritage side of things, you know, the conservation side of things, that's really where, you know, the rubber meets the road with the Pope and Young Club. Yes, they're the holder of the records. They have, you know, that claim to fame. That is what everybody knows them as. But they
right,
are so much more. They do so much more than just the records. And the
yeah,
records themselves are incredibly important. We just uh, started giving data to I think it's the University of Wyoming. They're doing a sheep study for
mm-hmm.
horn size, and seeing, you know, how that correlates to the health of the animal, and, you know, if you can judge, you know, that through that kind of data. And the data that we're providing them with, us and Boone and Crockett, is, you know, priceless to them.
Yeah.
And
Who
so
else? Who
we're
else
talking
has that
50,
information?
right? I mean, from the Pope and Young Club's point of view, we're talking over 50 years, 3 million pieces of data, you know, for wild
Wow.
game animals. That's some seriously good information, you know, for fishing game departments, and we do
Yeah.
provide that to them.
That's a crazy PDF file.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, you know what drew me to the Pope and Young Club was just the heritage first and foremost for me. I just felt, well, I just, when you go back and look at old films and you hear the stories of Tom and Harv and Jim, and they, you know, it was a different time. Was it more difficult? I don't know. In some aspects, yes. Sometimes I question if the animals haven't evolved and made it harder on us than it was then. There was more of them then. They weren't as threatened then. Maybe it was easier. I don't know, but the heritage is what excited me about Pope and Young, the museum and the books and the people and the collective of stories and adventures and you know, and I'm not a history buff by any means, but I'm passionate about bow hunting, so therefore it relates to me. Um,
Right.
you know, and so I really enjoy that part of it, and getting to interview
I
some of those guys was amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story. I was lucky enough to grow up in northern Michigan, which is the home of bear archery. And when I was in sixth grade, I believe it was sixth grade, we went on a field trip to Grayling. And we went, and they wouldn't do that today. We went to the Fred Bear Museum and the bear archery plant to see how they make bows and see all of the mounts, you know, Fred Bear had. You know, I
Right.
can't imagine this, you know, school system, you know, in a big metropolitan area would do that today. Too many people would get triggered, I think. But anyway, um, the so I'm in there, and I'm just a little guy, you know, and I'm standing there and I'm looking at this big bear standing there, right? And you know the bear I'm talking about. It's the
Yeah.
famous, you know, brown bear, I think, that
Yep.
Fred Bear took. And, you know, I barely even came up to, you know, its crotch, and it's just like, holy wow, I saw, you know, and with a bow and arrow, you know, and then
Right.
enters this skinny old guy who, you know, shuttles us all over into the back room and starts showing us hunting films.
Right.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I had no idea who that guy was, because I came from a family of gun hunters, and we knew nothing about bow and arrows.
Right.
So, I just thought it was a really, really cool experience. Well, fast forward, almost 30 years later, I'm coming off of an elk hunt in Idaho, coming off the mountains. My feet are duct taped together. I am beat to a pulp, really,
Right.
And I fly directly to Springfield, Missouri, to attend the Archery Hall of Fame induction of the Boning's founder, Roland Boning. I had worked with Dave Staples for years to get him inducted into the Archery Hall of Fame, and finally he was. And so at that point, the Archery Hall of Fame, unbeknownst to me, had purchased or taken as a donation. Anyways, they had possession of Fred Bear Museum stuff. So after the ceremony, and Roland was inducted, his daughter went up, and she cried. It was very emotional, thing for her dad to be recognized for his contributions to archery and bow hunting. Right. So once we were done, they gave us kind of a free tour. We could go, look into the museum. Sweet. And so they opened up the velvet rope, and I walked up these stairs, and I turned the corner, and I'm standing there in front of that bear.
Right.
The exact same bear that I stood in front of when I was 12 years old.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, we've come quite a ways.
Yeah, no doubt.
You and I.
Yeah, he probably looked like he's weathered the time a little bit better than you, though, I imagine.
Yeah,
right?
I was pretty rough at that point.
Well, when did you acknowledge or realize that was Fred Bear that showed you those films?
Oh, I think probably a month or two later, where my dad was talking about hunting, and and I told him we went there. He was like, "Oh, that was probably Fred Bear." So then he starts feeding me books, and I was reading adventure stories from Fred Bear, and that was the greatest thing. And so super cool. I think I was 14 years old. I saved up. I worked all summer long. I saved up as much money as I could, bought my first bow, and it was a old Darton bow that just still had the cams were set inside of like a hole. They weren't split limb yet. It was still set inside of like a little metal holder that held the cams.
Okay, gotcha.
Bow. And so I was shooting, fingers, no sights, off a flipper rest. And back then they didn't even have quivers. They had two things that clipped on the limbs of your bow, a bear quiver that clipped on the limbs of your bow, and you could put your, 3 or 4 arrows in there, but the blades were just out in the open.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was how my first, venture into bow hunting. And my dad had bought me a tree stand, that's where the name comes from. It wasn't a tree chair. It was a tree stand. It was a freaking platform that just kind of chained to a tree with a spike that came out the bottom and stuck in the trunk. And you stood there. It was like a foot by 1 foot.
Yeah.
It was a tree stand. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But,
right.
Can't imagine standing there for 8 hours, today.
Yeah, right. Especially some of the lounge chairs we get to slid in nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
They're comfy. I was just in one yesterday that John Gardner had in a tree, and I went up there, and it's like a new Millennium series or something. I'm sitting in the thing, and I'm like, yeah, baby.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, this is excellent. By God, I think I could even take a nap.
But see, if you look at the evolution of that, there's a lot of kids today, they don't have that, they don't have that influence to kind of feed that into them, because I grew up on Marty Stauffer and Mutual Vote Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and I thought that was just the greatest thing ever, watching people getting up close and personal with animals. And then my dad introduces bow hunting into the mix, and I'm hooked.
Right. I know.
So
wouldn't it
kids
be
don't
super
have that
cool?
today.
Wouldn't it be super cool if we had like a show like that now with the videography and the stuff that we can do now? I mean, how amazing, right? I guess I think, now that I think about it, I think National Geographic has touched on that somewhat. Like, but not in the hunting scenario, right? They just,
Right.
animals of the world or animals, different things and Shark Week and,
Yeah.
some of that kind of stuff, but not in the same platform with the same message. I think that'd be
Yeah,
super cool.
it'd be interesting. I would hope it would be interesting to most people. Um,
Right.
I I don't know if it would be fast enough for a lot of
Yeah.
people to maintain
That's,
interest,
yeah. So, I mean,
because what is hunting? It's a lot of quiet time. It's a
yeah.
lot of slow moving. It's 4 hours of boredom and 3 minutes of hyper intensity.
Right. I think that that's why I talk to a lot of people, and they always tell me that their favorite type of hunting is small game because it's
Nonstop.
nonstop, man. Where a lot of those people they have a hard time with doing um, the sit and wait, right? That kind of thing. I mean, I know my kids. Like I tell them all the time, like, you want to kill an elk? If you sit right here every day for 4 days, sun up to sundown, you'll get to kill an elk. And after half a day, they're like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to kill an elk that
Right.
bad. you know?
My sons were the same way with whitetail hunting. I put them in a tree stand, and an hour and a half later, they're like, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is what I got to do."
When is this
And
over?
and but there's different styles. Like when I go out west, I love just walking.
hmm
I would call it spot and stalk, but it's more hike and listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
ever had Jim Willems tell you his story about elk hunting, about how he elk hunts now?
It's maybe touch on it because
He was telling me this story about, he was like, I got to the point where I just quit calling him. I just run up on him and kill him. I'm like, what? Jim, you have to write that story because that's some interesting stuff. That's not anything you hear about all the time.
right.
He was like, yeah, I'd call and locate him, and I'd slip in. I get close enough, then I just run in. And he said he ran into this herd at one point, and he had cows running with him.
No
I'm
kidding.
like, wow,
They didn't know what to do. I think he may have mentioned that in our podcast, but I don't recall. I'd have to go back and listen to it. That was a while ago, but nah, I don't know. I think figuring out how to get Pope and Young's message to the younger people and bridging the gap. I mean, we've had this conversation, you and I. It's going to be it's extremely challenging. I mean, because like you're saying, everything's got to be super fast paced for them to for you to get them to look, even or let alone give you the 60 seconds,
right.
and give enough to them to where they'll actually take time to digest it and make a decision on top of that, right? So
I just like to get the guys that have already sold out to bow hunting, because they already understand what bow hunting is. They
right.
just don't understand that they have that opportunity because of the Pope and Young Club.
Right.
And that is something that it tends to be a kind of a tough thing. It's worth doing. I mean, it's definitely, quality work worth doing, but it's not an easy thing to make that neuron fire,
Right.
because there's so much or misperception that you have to get over, with, the club has a past of, trying to play equipment police and, the whole let off and lighted knocks. And when you break that all down, the only thing that has anything to do with is entry into the book, right?
Right.
That's it. If you haven't shot an animal big enough to, qualify for the book, then pretty much all that other stuff that people complain about doesn't matter. It doesn't even, count yet.
True.
So it's all about the trophy thing, and the problem I have with people saying, well, I don't enter my animals. Well, that's sad that you don't have that animal recognized and honored for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Something that grew that big and qualified for the book. There should be data on that animal, at least for conservation organizations to use.
Right. And
So
so
the animal should have been recognized.
right. Okay, so then if they don't want to recognize their animal, and then you get into this equipment police thing, I mean, what? How do you talk to someone about that? Like that new traceable knock or trackable knock and all this different stuff that technology is handing us these days. How do you support Pope and Young's argument, or not necessarily argument, Pope and Young's foundation to people who want to have that argument?
Well, they can have that argument, but the whole point is somebody in the foundation of the bow hunting. I hate to say industry, but culture. Let's say culture. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to be the voice of reason and go, whoa. Let's take a look at this. Let's not just jump on everything that comes out immediately. Mm-hmm. Let's really look and see, how does this affect the animal's ability to evade? How does this affect fair chase? Mm-hmm. Does this make it to where you have an unfair advantage over that animal? And I know that people are like, well, no. Well, okay, let's have, but that's where Pope and Young comes in. They have to be that voice that says, hold up. Let's just think about this.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's sit around a round table and let's really examine the situation, right, and make sure that it's ethically right and that it's got a foundation for being
because
something that's
like the knock you say, right? There's a lot of people that are saying, well, that doesn't that doesn't impede fair chase at all, but how have you gotten complete pass through on every animal you've shot?
No.
So if that arrow stays in that animal, and I'm not saying that this is true. I'm just saying this is a side of that argument that you should look at.
This is a possible scenario.
So if I know that I got these things in my quiver, and I can get an arrow in that thing, and I can track it, does that lead me to take more chancy shots? To then increase the likelihood of me wounding an animal? You have to consider all those scenarios. And yeah, there's probably 9 times out of 10 that would not happen. But you have to consider the 1 out of 10. If you are the organization that protects the heritage of bow hunting, we have to consider those things. I mean, it doesn't make us old, stodgy, and anti technology. It makes us thoughtful, and someone has to be that voice of reason.
Right. I mean, because from my point of view, it's like I always give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm always thinking that every bow hunter is trying to make the best ethical shot possible. Right?
Absolutely.
I just want to assume this, but we know that the reality is that there are people who won't. Right.
And what in the fallout from that is that then there's all this information and evidence for antis to then use against bow hunting and bow hunters. And for every 1,000 guys that do it the right way, it only takes a handful to do it the wrong way.
Right.
And it ruins all that, in the public's perception. Because at the end of the day, the voting public is who we want to convince. And we don't necessarily need them to all be bow hunters, but we need them to all be, or as many of them as possible, to be pro hunting. Because they understand the sustainable use of wildlife is the reason that it exists.
And I think, I think another challenge that Pope and Young has in front of it, and I'm sure you've acknowledged this, and hope you have, is that it's unfortunate that within the culture that has somewhat turned into an industry, unfortunately, that there's a lot of people in the same culture, same industry, that are dividing themselves and not staying true to the heritage and the ethics, and allowing the conversations to happen without taking sides and throwing blows. Everybody's so quick to react. I mean, the minute this became a controversy, there was plenty of other podcasts that jumped right out there and just threw their 10 cents into the wind without really considering, where we've come from and where we're at and where's the in between and all this stuff. And you got people who just picked a side immediately.
I like the statement that Howard Hill made when a group of archers that were trying to have sights on bows be considered bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Howard Hill never used a sight. Howard Hill was a complete traditional shooter, but his statement was, gentlemen, as long as they shoot a bow and arrow, as long as they shoot a stick and string, I'm with them.
Right.
And that's the key. And so my statement is, Pope and Young, we are for all bow hunters. Now, it takes certain steps to get into the record book, which is just a part of Pope and Young.
Right.
But we support bow hunting. We support all bow hunters. Even if you're just a meat hunter that goes out with his bow and arrow, her bow and arrow, and you're just filling your freezer. Well, welcome to the club, because I do that.
Right.
I think we all do that.
I mean, that's the big
Just
main
because,
focus here in the last 2 or 3 years is to shift that trophies thing that's all messed up around to say, well, I'm doing it to feed my family. I'm doing it for clean meat. I'm doing it for this and this and this. But
that's your trophy.
But that's your trophy. That's right.
Trophy.
And that's the acknowledgement that needs to be made there for sure. I mean, but I mean, we're kind of coming back around on the trophy thing again, but
it's important.
It is important.
One of the big issues.
And I think that for me, I mean,
they should have never used that term, trophy hunting. Trophy hunting should have never been a term.
Yeah,
it should just be hunting. Bow hunting.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I have shot a doe, and my nephew has shot a doe, and we've stood there and looked at him and like,
mine's bigger than yours.
Mine's bigger than yours. And then we both butcher our own animal, right? And you can clearly see that one's bigger than the other, but we'll each butcher our own animal, and then we come back together and be like, how much meat did you actually process? How much did you waste? Mm-hmm. Let's weigh all your meat. Who's got the most meat?
Did you take that meat from the inside of the rib cage? Did you take all that meat? There's lots of people don't even take that. It's some of the best.
Yeah, it depends on where I'm at. If I'm 8 miles in, I may not take the rib meat.
Absolutely.
But I can tell you right now though, if I'm at home, anywhere around where I live and we harvest a deer or an elk, that whole thing's coming home. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've got elk ribs in the freezer right now. I've got deer ribs in the freezer right now. I mean, I think it's excellent too, but I've left some rib meat out in the high country because
we all have.
I'm not doing that, but
you have to. The juice has to be worth the squeeze at them.
And there's a lot of squeezing sometimes. Yeah. I mean every ounce, Matt. I mean, think about how much money and time you spend shaving ounces out of your pack to go backcountry, and yet you're going to actually consider whether or not you're gonna carry that rib meat out. I mean, seriously. You're not.
Yeah, well, I mean, no. You're gonna take as much as you can possibly carry, and without physically threatening your health.
Yeah, there you go. Right. You're thinking about how many deadfall I got to climb over to get out of here to a trail. That means a lot to me.
How many trips do I got to make?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
because I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never had anybody with a pack animal. I mean, it's always, come out on my back. Always.
I have wanted to make that phone call a few times. It's
always a second trip. It's always a second trip in where you're like, oh wow, I really should have called pack animal.
Yeah, I am surely one to wish that. Well, since my daughter and I have kind of had the conversation about her using my wife's horse to pack out because he will. We've given that option. We have that option, but since that option came on the table, I have not killed an animal to make that phone call. So I'm still waiting.
There's pros and cons my pack animal too, though. Because I've seen mules explode in the mountains of Idaho and just lose it.
Yeah.
So and you got there's pros and cons for everything.
Got a full on rodeo on your hands.
Yeah.
And you got like 10 miles to go get your horse.
One of my friends he works Grandview Media, Byers Media, Ken Byers. He was on an elk hunt and he was trying to stop a horse or a mule from getting away. It had gotten away from somebody, so he was trying to stop it, and it knocked him down and broke both his forearms.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful.
Yeah, and then you're in the backcountry and you got this running that way, and now you got Flight for Life coming too.
Right. Well, that guy, he's an Iron Man. I swear, sometimes he's part Billy Goat. So.
Is he?
Oh, he's hardcore.
So what is Pope and Young going to do at this point in time? What's the plan, Rick, for trying to change the numbers? You sent me a stat that said that there's 300,000 bow hunters just in Michigan. Okay, now listeners, wrap your mind around this. 300,000 bow hunters in just the state of Michigan, yet we're struggling to get members to Pope and Young that are only 7,000 strong with Pope and Young.
In North America.
In North
All
America.
through North America.
The whole North America. We're not Michigan to Michigan here. 300,000 in Michigan, 7,000 nationwide.
Nation in Canada, U.S., and Mexico.
Yeah. It's a distorted value. So, Rick, tell our listeners what the advantages are for them to sign up as a member of Pope and Young after they listen to this podcast.
Think of the weight that a bow hunting organization would have if we were 1 million strong. Think of the weight of that. Think of the pull that we would have. And the Pope and Young Club is a 501c3, so they can't be political. That's other people's thing to do. That's not what they're doing. But to be able to marshal people or feedback to causes that are, near and dear to the heart of bow hunters, think of that. Because if we were 1 million, 2 million strong, and the grizzlies just became illegal to hunt grizzlies in British Columbia, which it did.
Right.
We could marshal, people to that venue, to be at those meetings, to voice their opinions. Because people are busy, it's hard for people to keep their eye on the ball, when they're, working 12 hours a day, raising kids and, doing all this stuff. I get that. But if they got an email from the Pope and Young Club saying, you're a bow hunter, this is a problem, we need your help. Boom. You can focus.
And those that could put their feet to their faith could go, or those who can't could simply fill out a survey, right? And that collective survey information could be presented, and it would have a lot more. Or just
from another aspect, if we had 1 to 2 million members, think of the amount of education that we could then give to young bow hunters coming up. I can guarantee you there would never be another generation of bow hunters who do not know who Fred Bear is.
Right.
And that's happening today.
Right. So how do okay?
And that's the
so,
culture. The culture of bow hunting. Where did we come from? Why do we have a bow season, and how did it come to be?
Right.
We should all know these things. As bow hunters, you should know these things, because if you don't know how we got here, chances are you could be taken off that path. Chances are you could lose. This could go away.
Right. True. And I mean, that was a eye opener for me in the last couple conventions that I went to, John and Lou and them talking me into going. And, I didn't know when I first picked up a bow and first started bow hunting. I had no clue.
Because you were like, well, there's always been bow seasons.
Yeah. As far as I knew, I had no clue.
Bow seasons aren't even 100 years old.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy, right? Okay, so that's benefit number one, would be being a part of something that's nationally organized, that would work for you, and and share a collective platform.
Right, because then the club would keep its hand on the pulse of what's happening, and then keep the members informed. This is what's going on. This is what's going on.
And I think that if you have any, even when it comes, okay, so even back to that knock deal, I mean, if you had 1 million members and you sent out a survey and it came back that the majority vote, so to speak, or the majority opinion was that they liked this and they don't have a problem with it, I think Pope and Young as a whole would be like, okay then.
Well, that's how the lighted knock thing finally was approved. It was done in a similar fashion, but it became clear over the years that obviously was not, a detriment to fair chase. The issue that some members had is that once you allow one thing, then what's going to happen? Like the slippery slope argument, that you've heard in the past. And when you address things by a case basis, which is what the club does, mm-hmm. There's not a slippery slope thing isn't necessarily going to happen,
right? In
my opinion.
Okay, so then what's the next thing our listeners need to know about why they should sign up for Pope and Young and become a member?
If you could imagine a Pope and Young club with 1 to 2 million people as members, look at the amount of funding that we could target to bow hunting specific organizations or bow hunting specific causes.
Right.
That's huge. That's huge. But at 7,000 members, I mean, it's a struggle.
Right. I think that my message along with yours is that I think that it's super important that you do something on a local level. Support your local 3D chapter or local bow shop or things like that. Support your local, stuff within your county. But then you need to be a part of your state archery organization as well. And then you should be a part of the national side of it as well. So for me, with archery, I don't get specifically into the deer or the turkey foundation or anything like that. I try to support something on a local level, and then I'm a part of the Colorado Bowhunters Association, and then I'm a part of the Pope and Young. So I have something in interest and communication and education from every level, from my very local to my state to my national level. And I think that that's important. I think that if you're a member of a state bow hunting organization, then there is no excuse for you to not be a part of Pope and Young.
Right.
And I think,
if your issue is, well, I don't like how Pope and Young Club does this, or I don't like how Pope and Young Club does that. Okay, so then why would you throw out what Saxon Pope and Art Young and Ishii and Will Compton and all these guys did because someone said something that you didn't agree with? Or get involved and change it.
Yeah,
If you don't
exactly.
like something, get involved, because you
Right.
can't do anything but complain from the outside.
Yeah. And I don't really I you know if you've got a platform to stand on to complain, then you better have a platform that has some, maybe they're not solutions, but they're ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come to me and just bitch at me, you know, because then most of the time if people just come and they just bitch at you, then and you say, okay, well then how about this, well they don't like your damn ideas either, right?
All right.
So
As
you know.
Benjamin Franklin said, a man convinced he's of the wrong opinion is of the same opinion still.
Exactly.
So,
That's a great way to put it eloquently. I never can speak that way, but yeah, I'm glad you understood what I'm saying. I So just to play devil's advocate here, so those that think that we're, you know, I've been at the convention and helped John work in Salt Lake at the Pope and Young booth, and I've had a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, they just when they walk by the booth and they all you hear is, yeah, yeah, they don't really do anything except for keep records in that book. It's just for the high class. It's just for the people that can, you know, go do these paid hunts and things like that. But
you know,
what the
tell that
reality?
tell that to the guy that was blueberry picking 3 or 4 years ago with his bow because he was hunting caribou. It was caribou season, but he was also blueberry picking and shot the
It,
world record. I don't remember which species of caribou, but he shot the world record caribou.
yeah,
It was
I think it was.
recognized.
I think it was the Barren Land, and it
Yeah,
was some 70 in. I don't know,
it was crazy. It beat it by like
40 inches or 70 inches.
30
It
or
was
40 inches. Yeah,
yeah,
it just shattered the world record. You know, this guy. I tell him that he was just a meat hunter. He didn't even have a picture of it.
right. What about the kid? What about the kid that this year that got the? Was it the blacktail or the Sika? That young kid who just
The
started bow hunting.
the black, I think it was blacktail.
Was it blacktail? Yeah, and he
Or
just
was it Coos deer?
no, it
Cows
was
deer,
coos.
excuse me.
It was
Cows
coos deer. That's right. And he'd barely even been hunting. He went out for his first archery hunt ever, coos deer hunting, and didn't even have any camouflage, for crying out loud. He didn't have any money.
Yeah. And see, that's the point, is that when people throw that stuff at you, that's not reality.
Right.
It's just misperception.
Right.
It's all that is. Because your average bow hunter, he's just bow hunting. He's
Right.
you and I, and you know, not doing anything, you know, more intense than what we are all doing. You know, some people get really lucky. You know, some people work their butts off and, you know, track um and document the movements of this buck and that buck, and you know, there's people that do that.
Right.
I personally don't have time to do that, but
Right.
there are people that do that, and if they put that kind of work in to get, you know, that kind of an animal, more power to them.
So
That animal should be honored at that point.
right. So what's Pope and Young gonna do? What's Pope and Young going to do to bridge this gap in the membership from, I mean, because we have quite a distance of older membership, right? And then not so many in my, you know, well, I get somewhere there's a gap. I don't know if it's my age group but we definitely know that on the youth that are coming up that have no idea that we have some issues there. But what's Pope and Young going to do at this point to figure this out?
We, at the summer board meeting, we instituted a new committee called the Action Committee to address issues just like that issue that you were just talking about, and it's meant to find reasons or find the actions that we can then take and say, yes, this is the things that Pope and Young Club are doing, because there's lots of stuff that is happening and lots of things that people are doing, but nobody has broken it down into like a seminar or a presentation. And we have discussed the, you know, boots on the ground, the Action Committee being a place where we could actually then start taking people from a local level and targeting them into these issues that need our attention. But
Mm-hmm.
you can't fly staff and stuff out there.
It's
With a club that it's only has 7,000 members, you just can't do that. It's
right.
Financially not possible.
Right.
But we have members in different areas, so we can focus those members in that area, and then taking more advantage of educating the youth that are just hungry for bow hunting about sustainable use and the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation, the Pittman-Robertson Act. These are things these kids don't know about. And
right.
If you don't think the antis aren't targeting them now, then you need to go to some rock festival concert series things and start picking up some of the handouts that your teenage kids are getting,
right.
thrown at them. It's
right.
90% of it is anti-hunting stuff. So you have to, and so that's why organizations like Raise That Full Draw and Scholastic 3D Archery, where you have these kids that are just hungry to become bow hunters,
right.
that were never bow hunters before, but they want to be now. And so we're starting them off right. We're educating them right on the conservation aspect of things. And, like the Scholastic 3D program, it's exploding all over North America. It is going gangbusters.
Yeah.
Because it's that one program that says, okay, you have youth archery, putting bows in the hands of kids. Well, but you have to have something beyond that.
Right.
Because we've already seen many youth organizations that put bows in the hands of kids, and those kids don't become bow hunters.
Right.
So what do you use to bridge the gap? Well, S3DA, part of their curriculum is the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation, the Pittman-Robertson Act, sustainable use. They're teaching this, and so to take that information, they are bridging the gap. They are actually making bow hunters out of their students that are wanting to bow hunt.
Right. Well, okay. So then, for the listeners, what is a 1-year membership? What is a 3-year membership? What does this cost?
You're gonna throw numbers at. I don't know what a 3-year membership is. It's a $40 a year. That's what your membership costs. And most people blow more than that, and coffee.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know.
So if you could take, what is that? Figure out 11 cents a day, something like that.
I don't even know. That'd be
to
fun.
Sustain,
that'd be good math to know.
To sustain, I'm pretty sure it's 11 cents a day. To sustain the culture and heritage of bow hunting, really, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it is. It's extremely affordable. It's super cheap, but yet I do think that what you get back from Pope and Young Club, in my opinion, so what I've gotten back from it is the education, is the history, is the ethics, the camaraderie, the ability to get on the website and read and chat and get some information from people and then but I can tell you that truly the best experience I ever had was going to a convention. I mean,
hey, go to a convention, because then you realize there is no pretension. These are not pretentious people.
No.
At all.
No.
You realize that you're sitting at a table and there's Jack Frost sitting there next to you,
Yeah.
The guy that is, just a, world famous sheep hunter. And he's just regular guy. How you doing?
Yeah.
Tom Hoffman, same way. Chuck
Yeah,
Adams, all these guys, they are not pretentious people. They are not they're not keep me behind a rope because I'm a VIP. They don't act that way.
No.
That's just not what they do.
Not
When you go to the Pope Young convention, the whole point is we're all bow hunters. There you go.
Plain and simple. That's the simple message that everybody in this culture and industry needs to remember. We're all bow hunters. And we all need to stick together. And we all need to find a way to do that. And I think the most collective way to do that is to be a part of a greater situation, and that's Pope and Young.
Absolutely.
That's the best way I could put it. Rick, I really appreciate you being on. I hope that, through the podcast and through some of the message we've put out there and some of the works of the Actions Committee that was developed, that we can really begin to find a way. I mean, the education is the key point. I think that is what matters the most. I think the delivery of that messages through the components in which youth and people utilize these days is the other key importance. Hence, Instagram, social media, podcasting, YouTube, different things like that. I think it's all important. And that's the discussions we had this spring, and it feels good to watch the club.
What we should do is try to have, like a run, take these bow hunting personalities, right? And then offer them, say, look, take over the Pope and Young Instagram page for a day.
Right.
Tell all your people, all your fans or whatever, you're taking it over. This is you.
Yeah.
We can do stuff like that.
That would be super cool. Now, last time I talked to you, you had some people that you would have thought that was pretty cool and do it, but they hesitate, even though they're memberships, huh?
Oh yeah, I offered to every TV bow hunter, vertical bow hunter out there. I offered that if you guys would send me a 30-second video about why it's important, why the bow hunting culture is important, why it's important to become a Pope and Young Club member, we would give you a 3-year membership for that.
Right.
Not one person took me up on it.
Wow.
Sad, right?
Yeah. I mean, how do you?
Because if you think about it, to have a video produced, you're talking pretty good money. It's not cheap. So, to trade a membership for that, figure it's a good deal. But nobody.
Well, so we challenge. So I don't know. Through the podcast, I challenge you to sign up and be a member of the Pope and Young.
Send us your videos, post your pictures, go to our Facebook page,
hashtag them, like them, follow them.
We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn.
Nice. There's plenty of ways to find Pope and Young. That's for sure. Well, I challenge everybody now. Before I go, I challenge everybody to do that. Be a part of Pope and Young. Like I said, be a part of something local, something statewide, and something national. And Pope and Young, if you're an archer, there is no reason why you shouldn't be a member of Pope and Young.
Absolutely.
Now we've burned up quite a bit of time here, Rick, and we'll call it quits on this podcast. But I'm definitely gonna let the listeners know that you've got some amazing stories that I want to hear, and so I want to figure out how we can do this again very soon, because I want to have that moment to talk to just Rick and his stories and his adventures in the wilderness and who you are. I mean, I think that's important, like I've done with some of the other Pope and Young members, and I look forward to doing that part. But I felt passionate and compelled to really stick to the Pope and Young message on this podcast, and make sure that the listeners that I have right now understand Pope and Young's direction and their foundation and what it means to be a member. And I'm hoping that even people that listen to my podcast that may not be hunters, if you like seeing elk in the woods, if you like seeing moose, if you like seeing bears, you like seeing caribou, you like seeing all these things when you go hike around, you should really consider the conservation model that was from day one Pope and Young's belief and still is today. Way before it was cool to be to be a part of conservation. Way before it was, the whole clean meat and sustainability and all these things. It's always been a part of Pope and Young. Always has been, always will. So even to the listeners that may be non-hunters, I encourage you to think about being a part of an organization. Even my producer doesn't hunt, and she is a part of Pope and Young. So,
contributing member.
That's right. And so, I think it'd be super, supporting member. I think it'd just be super cool.
Just make sure your listeners understand that the Pope and Young Club is far more than just the records.
I think we've got that. I think we've expressed that in this podcast.
That's all I can try to do.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's been a struggle, but it was important for both of us to make this happen. I look forward to it. I know that we're working on some cool things for um, the rendezvous.
The rendezvous coming up in June 8th through 10th in 2018 in Poignant, Wisconsin. Had to throw that in there.
Yeah, I was hoping you would, because I couldn't remember I couldn't remember the exact dates myself, and I'm sure that I wouldn't have pronounced Poignant properly.
Poignant, Wisconsin. Yep.
Out of the gate. Well, Rick,
it's
thanks
so much.
It's
a great venue.
Yeah, that's what you were saying when I was talking to you.
Yep. It'll be fun. It was fun last time, and hopefully this time we have more people out and just grow it from there. Yeah, it's just a celebration of bow hunting and a celebration of everything bow and arrow. It's not pretense or anything. It's just come out, have fun, shoot your bow, and check out other people doing the same thing and have a great time doing it.
Sounds like a good idea to me, and it sounds like it'll be on my calendar for me to hit. That's for sure. I look forward to it. Rick, thanks so much, sir. I appreciate you.
No problem.
Thanks for coming on. All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
What a great show. Appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. If you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, good, bad, or ugly, please go to wildernessattitude.com and drop me a message there. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you later.